Velorex is a well-known brand among Soviet motorcycle fans, especially those who like Czechoslovakian bikes. Its popular sidecar, often called a kolyaska, was a common choice for Jawa and Chizy motorcycles. But Velorex is recognized for more than just sidecars. For almost 3 decades, this company produced these light three-wheeled cars which were rather primitive in design. That's what this video covers. You're watching CrossModa. Enjoy the video. So before we move on to looking at Velorex vehicles, let's have a bit of historical context. Vehicles of this kind have several names: cycle car, autocycle, motor carriage, and forest wheeler. To be continued. If the design is four-wheeled, please don't confuse it with a quad bike. A motor carriage should generally be distinguished from a microcar, though the difference is not always clear. Generally, a motor carriage and a microcar have similar dimensions. But at the same time, a motor carriage, as its name suggests, is built on the basis of motorcycle components, which are adapted in one way or another for use in such a vehicle. The first cycle car designs date back to the late 19th century and the early years of the 20th. But motor carriages became most widespread in Europe twice, and each time it happened after a world war. The first period of prosperity, therefore, came in the 1920s, and the second lasted from the late 1940s to the mid-1960s. The reason was simple. Most residents of war-torn Europe were barely making ends meet, and they also needed an affordable means of transportation. During this time, bicycles, light motor vehicles, and cycle cars boomed. After World War II, motorized sidecars became especially popular in Germany. They cost about half as much as the cheapest cars and were in high demand, up until the economic boom of the 1960s, when most West Germans could already afford a full-fledged car. For example, many companies that once made weapons later designed microcars. For instance, former aircraft makers Messerschmitt and Henkel, unable to resume their old work after the war, used their expertise in mass-producing complex products. In addition, motorcycle manufacturers such as Zundap and BMW also tried to establish themselves in this market. Even sports models were produced, such as Spots and Victoria 250, although they did not particularly stand out for their dynamic qualities. I think the overall picture is mostly clear. Give a thumbs up and leave a comment in support if you want. A big episode about the history of motorcycle sidecars. Let's move to Czechoslovakia. The history of Velorex motorcycle sidecars begins in 1936. It was then that two brothers, František and Mamir Stransky, owners of a small bicycle workshop in the town of Parnik, began designing a small three-wheeled car, inspired by the products of a British company that had succeeded in this field. From the 1910s to 1930s, the first prototype by the Czechoslovaks was ready in 1943. It was a three-wheeled design that made extensive use of bicycle components. The body panels were made from duralumin sheets. The car was named Oscar. The name came from a combination of two Czech words, osa, meaning axle, and kara, meaning cart, literally cart on an axle. Oscar had a tubular space frame that surrounded the driver on all sides. There were two front wheels connected by a steering rack. The drive from the two-stroke motorcycle engine was transmitted by a chain to the single rear wheel. By 1945, many bicycle parts were swapped for motorcycle ones, and fabric replaced duralumin sheets due to shortages. By this time, František and Mamir had built a small batch of people's vehicles. 3 sidecars had 150cc Chizy engines, 3 had 300cc PAL engines, and 6 had 250cc JAWA engines. The price of the vehicle was about a quarter of the cost of a typical car. Since Czechoslovak industry by the late 40s could not meet the population's demand for cars and some people could not afford a car, certain officials and leaders made the following decision. In 1950, Stransky's workshop, was transferred to a small manufacturing company called Vela in Hradec Králové, which was later renamed Velorex. In 1951, the equipment and 6 workers were moved to a new factory in the town of Solnice. That year, 120 Oscar cycle cars were produced, and the next year, another 180. And in 1954, 80 workers were producing an average of 40 cars per month. In the same year, the Oscar 54 model appeared with a slightly modified body. By the way, the Oscar 54 and other Velorex tricycle models were designed as special vehicles for people with disabilities. The 54 had the following specifications: weight of 205 kg 2 seats and a maximum payload of 190 kg. A Jawa 250 single-cylinder 2-stroke engine produced 9 horsepower with forced air cooling. The autocycle could reach 35 kilometers per hour and used about 4 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers. Early 1954 was a grim period for the Stransky family. On January 21st, during the testing of another prototype, one of the brothers, František, was killed in a crash. Around the same time, his brother Mojmír resigned from the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia and was dismissed from the Velo company. This did not have much impact on the further production of 3-wheeled vehicles. Only the name of the vehicles gradually changed. In 1955, the Velorex Oscar 16 model was introduced, later known as the Velorex 16-250. This version was produced until 1963, equipped with 16-inch wheels and a Jawa-type 353 engine with 12 horsepower. In 1959, production reached a volume of 120 vehicles per month. Around 2,500 units of the 16-250 model, including the Oscar 54 in 1960, were produced. A new factory opened in Rychnov nad Kněžnou in the first year, increasing equipment production. Over the years, the 3-wheeler was updated with a stronger engine, better suspension, and similar upgrades. In 1963, 2 models debuted, 16-175 and 16-350. The first one was equipped with a 175cc 2-stroke engine, producing 11.5 horsepower from the Cheze scooter. The little car's top speed was 65 kilometers per hour. It was produced for just 2 years, with only 800 units made. The most popular among the cycle cars was the model 16350S from 1963 to 1971. About 12,000 units were produced. This vehicle had a 2-cylinder Java engine with 350cc displacement and 16 horsepower. Several useful changes were made to the technology during this time. In 1963, a dynamo starter appeared, and from 1968, a hydraulic clutch was installed. In 1971, the 3-wheel design was replaced by the 4-wheeled Velorex 4530. This motor car had a Java 350cc engine with 17 horsepower and could reach 80 km/h. This little car couldn't withstand the competition with the Trabant and was discontinued after 2 years. A total of 1,380 units were produced. Almost half of the Velorex vehicles made were exported to friendly socialist countries: Bulgaria, Hungary, East Germany, and Poland. In Czechoslovakia, the Velorex was mainly distributed to people with disabilities through social welfare organizations. Depending on the degree and type of disability, a person either received the car for free or bought it through a special program. After 4 years of use, a person with a disability had the right to receive a new Velorex. A certain number of Velorex vehicles were distributed to enterprises and organizations as official means of transportation. For this, a few 3-wheeled pickup trucks were made featuring a small cargo platform over the engine and rear wheel. Velorex was the workhorse for rural agronomists, doctors, and livestock specialists. The incredible endurance, ease of maintenance, and repairability of these tricycles made them a true legend. Today, according to club estimates, almost half of the Velorex vehicles produced are still in service in the caring hands of enthusiast fans. Most clubs are in the Czech Republic, with others in Slovakia, Hungary, and the Netherlands. Every year, several gatherings of Velorex enthusiasts take place in the Czech Republic and Hungary, and sometimes one of the creators of this legendary vehicle, Mimir Stransky, would attend these gatherings. Mimir passed away at a very respectable age in 2011. For over 50 years, Velorex vehicles have gained many legends and myths. For example, a number of motorized sidecars were right-hand drive, which gave rise to the myth that these vehicles were supposedly exported to Britain. The fact seems logical, but its explanation is somewhat simpler. Since the majority of Velorex vehicles were intended for people with disabilities, the right-hand drive versions were actually necessary for citizens who had lost their right arm. This way, they had the ability to reach the control levers in the middle with their left hand. Another interesting story involves the claim that Velorex can go as fast in reverse as forward. This is not a myth. Reverse gear in these motorcycle sidecars was implemented as follows. There is an engine and a gearbox with 4 speeds. In order to go backwards, you need to stop, turn off the engine, and start it in the opposite direction. And voila, we have 4 reverse gears. Motorcycle sidecars began with the original sidecar. 560 for Java, 354 in the mid-50s. Everything was going very well for many decades, but at the turn of the 80s and 90s, it went through a rough period. Exports of motorcycles with sidecars drop sharply. After the Velvet Revolution in 1989, the cooperative disbanded, but the production facilities were privatized, and sidecar production was resumed and continues to this day. Under the brand name, in 2010, the company decided to reincarnate motorcycle sidecars by presenting a prototype called X-Strike. The machine featured a 1,300cc inline-4 engine, and they aimed to produce 5 to 10 units annually, but the plan failed. In 2021, another Velorex concept was introduced, but seems to have stayed a prototype. At this point, my friends, this story comes to an end. This is the story of the legendary Velorex motor tricycles from Czechoslovakia. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to support the channel by sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Special thanks to everyone who supports my channel financially using the details provided in the description. See you next time.